Hi, friend.
Hi, friend.
And to the brave hearts listening out there, welcome to Permission to be Human. I'm Andrea.
And I'm Janelle.
Get ready for some real-time relationship woo and wisdom
from the front lines with occasional tantrums and tears
about how breaking rules, blurring boundaries, and tossing tradition can be catalysts for finding your truth.
Let's debunk the fairy tales we were told as children and create a new map for life.
Yes, Disney can go fuck itself.
If you're seeking permission to choose your own path,
freedom is the new F word, people,
and want to feel less alone along the way,
we got you. Please note, this is our side of the story. Our partners and metamours have their own individual experiences, and we do not speak for them. Hi, Janelle.
Hey, Andrea.
This episode of Permission to be Human will begin with a story. Janelle, take it away.
Okay. I went out on a date a couple of months ago with a lovely man. We totally connected on the mind and spiritual level. He's a practicing Zen Buddhist for like 40 years or something. And we had the RBDSM conversation, which took us hours. And it was so intimate and so connecting. And this was on our second date. And so we had, it was just a really like juicy, like, oh yeah, things feel like you're in alignment.
Mm-hmm.
And then he kissed me.
Mm-hmm. And then he kissed me. Yes.
And what it felt like was that he was eating me.
Mm-hmm.
Literally. In that his tongue was like all the way in the back of my mouth, like kind to like lick the inside of my mouth and the dongle in the back. And then he put his entire mouth like over my lips. And at one moment I was like, oh, I could feel his like teeth up here. And I was like, I don't like that.
Okay. Right. So wait a second. So we're going to have to stop the story a couple of times, I think. Okay. So it felt like he was eating you.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd never kissed him before.
Nope. But the feeling that I got was that he was parched. Like while his mind and his spirit were relaxed, something in his body was saying, I want more. Mm-hmm. I'm dying of thirst. Mm-hmm. I'm dying for sensual touch and connection and physical intimacy. And the energy of his physical body when presented with the opportunity for physical touch was just like, yes. Mm-hmm. Like I need, grasping.
Yeah. Okay. I think I want to ask you if you ever have kissed like that with someone or in that, let's say, region of aggression and tongue and mouth over yours. Do you ever like kissing like that? Do you sometimes? Like in a past boyfriend?
Okay. Interesting question.
I'm like, oh no, we have to dissect this now. I just realized.
Yes. What I feel like is yes, when there's attunement. If we're both doing that. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah,
if our energies are matching each other.
And you've already tested it out.
Right. This is like a first kiss.
Right. Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
But what I would also say is that I feel like I was able to observe and notice all of that because I believe I actually also used to feel like he did.
Okay.
Parched.
Yeah.
Like, and grasping. Like, because I remember during our marriage at one point when my husband told me he didn't like the way I kissed.
That's hard.
Yeah.
That's super hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he also told me it felt like I was eating him. And so I think because I have that framework, right? Like that experience in my my past experience
Mm-hmm.
that I'm like, oh, I think this is the energy. I don't believe I kissed the way that this man was kissing me. And it doesn't, if I did or didn't, it doesn't really matter, because really it's the energy. And for a really long time, possibly lifetimes, I think I have not had my sexual, physical needs met the way that my body and soul was craving.
Boom.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you recognized yourself in him.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
A past version of me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that it was, like I said, like possibly lifetimes of me not having my needs met. And I remember at a point last year, after we were divorced and I had had several lovers, and after spending years learning about my pleasure and my intimacy, that I was comfortable stating my desires, my fears, my boundaries.
Right.
That I suddenly felt, I actually distinctly remember the moment, but I felt a shift inside me where suddenly I was like, oh, I'm at baseline.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I'm overflowing, but I'm at baseline where I can breathe, that my physical, intimate needs have been met to a way that I am no longer grasping. I am actually in choice.
Help me tease that out. Dissecting,
Grasping
grasping
versus choosing.
choice.
So grasping being like the energy was like driving me. Like I was being run by the energy versus being like, oh no, like I'm not thirsty anymore. I'm not parched anymore.
Okay.
Do I want to have water or do I want to have electrolytes? Do I want to have, this or that? Instead of being like, give it to me. Yeah. Give it to me.
Got it. Okay. Helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So what did you do? I mean, I guess it's more about how are you feeling in the marriage, but like, what the hell did you do in that moment? Did you stop kissing him? Did you ever see him again? Or did you express how it felt?
We kept kissing. I was really in this like really curious state of observation where I was like, I'm present and I'm observing at the same time. So the night continued. I did tell him I didn't like it when I could feel his teeth, but then we didn't see each other again after that evening.
Okay. So back to you saying you were in choice, though. You said, I think you meant that you know what brings you pleasure.
Yes, I see. In choice, yeah, that was probably not my best word. The in choice being like, oh, I'm coming from a centered place, being able to attune my energy to what feels true for me in the moment, right? Whereas before, the energy was just like coming out of me, and now I can direct it. I can respond. I can feel. I can dance with it.
Yeah. That's beautiful. So I've heard you say by becoming a better lover to yourself, you can become a better lover to others. So what does that mean?
Growing up, I had zero conversations. I wasn't taught any skills or education about my pleasure or sex, other than from my peers, which, useful to some degree, but here's
gives you a good idea.
Teenagers trying to figure stuff out.
Right.
And so my education came from Cosmo, from rom-coms, reading Danielle Steele.
Yeah.
I didn't watch porn, but I know a lot of people that that do, and that's the main source of their education. And what I inferred from what I was learning was that I needed to learn how to give a good blowjob. With the ultimate goal, what I inferred is that I had to learn how to give a good blowjob. With the ultimate goal is, how do I make him come? How do I make him orgasm?
Yeah.
Right? Being a good lover means that the other person is satisfied.
Yeah. just so classic. There's so many things like this.
Yes.
It's all about make everybody else feel comfortable in the room.
Yes.
Be polite to the company.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
it's a very funny analogy for what we're talking about, but yes.
It's really true, though. Like, this is a common metaphor for me. It's like, take care of everyone else and make sure you build a relationship with everyone else. What about a relationship with myself? Mm-hmm. So that's what you're doing now. Okay.
Yes.
So that was your impression. It was about the other person.
Right. Like, being a good lover was about the other person.
Yep.
And what I absolutely did not learn was how to give myself an orgasm.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I did not actually even have my first orgasm until I was 21. Until I was a senior in college, which is when I started masturbating, which is also very, I don't know, it's very late, but it's, it was conditioned.
No judgment.
Who knows? I had tried when I was 12.
Right.
And I had read a Cosmo article about something about orgasms and masturbating. And so I tried and it didn't work. And I thought I was broken. And for the next 10 years, I was like, oh, I'm just like the girl who doesn't know who can't orgasm and who can't masturbate.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And while I had lots of sex in college, and sex was something I wanted a lot, and I loved experimenting and trying new things, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, I also got really good at faking orgasms.
Yeah, tell me, did we go into that a little bit? Like, so when did you think you're like, oh, I'm not going to come, so I better fake it? I wonder how all that starts.
I don't even know. I
don't remember either. But of course, I've
because back to like rom-coms, right? To When Harry Met Sally. Like, there's you can get lessons on how.
Of course, yeah, it's really easy.
Yeah,
but it just became a pattern that you're like, okay, well, I have to do this because it's not going to work for me. So it's more like an acceptance early on for you, maybe.
Right.
So you're like, oh, this isn't working.
Right. Or this is also like, this feels really good. And so maybe I'm supposed to make more noise or something. Like, but
is this all there is? Was that it?
Yeah. And yet I also really liked it. So it was, I wasn't faking it because it was bad, but I was faking it because I thought I was supposed to feel something more than I was feeling.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And because I wanted I wanted the other person to feel good.
Right.
I mean, that's definitely part of it. I couldn't admit and articulate that I didn't know what I was doing. Or
yeah. It was your baseline.
Yeah. And I've told the story before, but I feel it's worth repeating, is that a couple of years ago, I met a married couple, and the guy was telling me about how they met, and that, I don't know, they were in college, and on the whatever date it was, when he thought they were going to be having sex, that she was like, I know you think we're going to be having sex, but instead you're going to come into the bedroom with me and you're going to watch me self-pleasure.
Right.
And so that you know how I like it.
Yeah, that's such a good story.
I was just like, what? I mean, I bowed down to this woman and I told her that. I mean, I'm still literally blown away by it because it like the confidence and the understanding of her pleasure and wanting, like, how did she learn to do that? How to not just like how to masturbate, because most people figure that on their own, but that she was supposed to tell the other person, right, that she was in charge of her own pleasure, and she was going to teach him so that she got the pleasure she needed.
Yeah, we just think that we're supposed to mind read.
Right.
We're supposed to know it already. And also being comfortable enough yet to do it in front of him.
Yes.
Which I don't have an issue of all, but someone just recently mentioned to me, they're like, yeah, I don't think everyone's comfortable doing that.
I 100% agree.
In front of a lover. Like,
yes. Yeah, it took me years to be comfortable.
I try to think when. No, I think I've been doing that for a long time. But I think just a quick thing on that is that, what's your experience with guys being like, okay, so I'm gonna masturbate and you're gonna watch?
I've never had a guy do that.
And have you ever heard of that? Or, I mean, this is your friends where the woman said it, right? But yeah, I feel like it's even more, at least in just my brief experience on this, it's even more taboo for a guy to sit there and jack off as you're watching. Like when I've run into this a few times, they're like, I don't know if I can do it because you're sitting right there. Like, you know what I mean? It's so interesting, but it makes sense that we're teaching the other person And yet,
I guess so. I've definitely watched many men jack off, and so that isn't the thing. But it hasn't been with the idea that they're teaching me how to give them pleasure. That's where I was like, oh, I haven't had a guy do that.
Oh, I see. Yes. Yeah, got it. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I see that. I see the difference there, though. Like,
Yeah.
I guess for me though, that is quite a different experience because mine was that like jacking off is something I do by myself in private without anyone watching.
Mm-hmm.
And when it was first, I'm just like, oh, but I'm like, if I'm not doing it, I remember having an experience where I was like, oh, I'm not doing it right, or it's not working. Mm-hmm. But of course they know, right? So I'm just like, oh, like this makes sense to watch and learn.
Right. Totally makes sense to watch. But as you're saying this, I'm also recognizing, right? So like in my relationship, in my marriage, right? We stopped being sexually intimate. And yet, so I remember like I would masturbate like as quietly as possible with him asleep.
Right.
Because
like,
hiding it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I mean. It is the association around the self-pleasure / masturbation ideas. It's something you do alone.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the first thing in becoming a better lover is to learn what brings me pleasure. Mm-hmm. That's like the first step, which is not the step I was taught.
Uh-huh. Okay. So how did you learn about your pleasure?
So fast forward to my late 40s. I'm married. We're polyamorous. My husband and I are not having sex. Mm-hmm. And I'm starting to learn skills and education about pleasure and intimacy through Tantra retreats. Mm-hmm. So the first thing I learned was the RBDSM, a conversation, which we've talked about, learning to name my desires, fears, and boundaries. Using my voice is a big part of it. Mm-hmm. And what I noticed almost immediately after learning that this conversation skill is that my nervous system felt so relaxed when I had that conversation before being intimate with someone, which helped me enjoy being intimate even more.
Got it. Yeah.
The second thing I learned was the wheel of consent. I learned how it feels to give, and I learned how it feels to receive. Mm-hmm. And what I noticed was that I had more capacity to receive pleasure when I understood the different ways we can ask for what we want. May I do X, Y, or Z to you for my pleasure? Will you do X, Y, or Z to me for my pleasure?
Okay. Yeah. And we have episodes on the RBDSM conversation and the wheel of consent.
Mm-hmm. And then the third one is along the way, I figured out what I call my pleasure pillars. Mm-hmm. We also have a podcast on this one. But for me, it's a relaxed nervous system. Mm-hmm. For example, having the RBDSMA conversation helps my nervous system relax. Mm-hmm. Trust in myself, my ability to speak my desires and boundaries in real time, and trust in the other person's ability to speak their desires and boundaries in real time.
Mm-hmm. I think these are like two really big things, like that you just said. Like learning your own boundaries, but also trusting someone else to set their boundaries and not letting the fear of them not setting boundaries influence what you do. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not going to do that because he might not like it. I mean, that's just like, that's something probably everyone has said. Mm-hmm. Whether they're talking about like making chicken for dinner or touching his leg, right? Like, I'm not going to do that because he might not like it. So I just want to address that like in our society, it's really common to assume someone doesn't have boundaries. Therefore, I'm not going to ask them and make them uncomfortable because they might not like it. Well, if they don't like it, they should tell you.
Yeah, they don't like it. Like, yeah, they don't have, like, maybe we're assuming they don't have boundaries, which maybe is really, if you put the mirror to ourselves, means that maybe we don't know what our own boundaries are. But that also implies that saying no, I don't like this, is a bad thing.
Exactly.
And it's not.
Yes.
Like, it's a huge, huge, huge gift in being told no.
Yeah. Rejoice in the rejection.
Rejoice in the rejection. Freedom and boundaries. Oh, like we have 3 areas. This is a yes, this is a no, and this is a no. Great. Where are all the things we can do in the yes? Mm-hmm. There's so much to explore in an area where we're both a yes.
Yeah. Yeah, beautiful. I feels like I just keeps coming back to that, like in mundane situations and in really significant situations, that we have to be with people who we trust we have to have our own boundaries, and we have to be with people who we trust to have their own boundaries. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
And then my third pleasure pillar is my laughter. That for me, if I'm in a situation where I can laugh, it doesn't mean this is like a comedy show, but like that laughter to me is a state of being. And my pleasure is enhanced when laughter is available to me.
Right. Okay. So just to review, your pleasure pillars are relaxed nervous system, trust in yourself and them, and your laughter.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Fascinating. And okay, so what I'm hearing is that you figured out what brought you pleasure and you learned how to ask for it.
Yes. Yes. And how I learned that was I was listening to my body, noticing what I liked and didn't like, and then responded with my words to ask for what I liked.
Okay. I mean, I think what I recently went through something where I was like, oh, this has worked for me in kind of a domino effect where I had the courage to say, you know what, I don't really like that, but I really like this. And it's, of course, nice to just, contrast it with something you do like.
Yes.
And then, like 5 minutes later, someone's like, I just really like it when you do this. And I would never have thought to do that because it's not one of my go-to places, but it was his favorite place. And so I'm like, oh, that's so great. Right. And then it was just like a contagious.
Yes.
After that.
Yes.
Because then I was
beautiful.
like, oh, can you touch my knee? Oh, can you grab my arm? Like and then we both, basically the barriers were down and the vulnerability went way up. And yeah, it's beautiful. It was fun, right?
Yes. Okay. I love everything that you're saying, because what I think is part of our perception is that we think our culture has taught us that someone else is supposed to know what we want.
It's so weird.
So weird, right? And that being a good lover is you just know what the other person wants without them having to ask for it.
Yeah. This just comes from soul. Like, oh, if you found your soulmate, then they should know you anyway. That's really the message, I think. That you should just have this knowing, this connection, this deep past thing that's magical. Okay, that's why. Yes.
Yeah, and so I think we're like set up for failure because besides not actually getting the skills and education when we're younger, the other mindfuck thing we learn is that someone else is actually supposed to know, to read my mind and what I want.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I definitely have held on to this in some ways. Like I know it's my cultural conditioning, it's some of my experience. And I guess I don't think it's completely bizarre, or I don't think it's unheard of to have this sort of natural attunement with some people. We were like, oh, he just knew exactly what to do there. Like we just fit together really perfectly. Or like he touched me and started to kiss me at the same time with the rhythm that I like, right? Because he's attuned to my body, he's touching, he's sensing, he's like using all of his senses, he's listening, he's watching. So I think a good lover and someone who's really attuned to you or your personality or, you as a person, as a human, could know that too. I guess I'm saying that's possible. And they can coexist, of course.
Yeah, and I think you are getting into
what to get into later.
Which we'll get into this later.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So on the topic of mind reading, right? So I have just spent years learning to understand what it is that I want and then learning to ask for it. Fucking celebration, right? I am so excited about that. It is a source of my freedom, right? It feels so good to be, I can just tell you what I like. Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, it was really fascinating because I was with a client the other day and we were working on intimacy skills.
Mm-hmm.
And I mentioned to him, I'd like to be touched this way and this way. And he said, I've had so little experience and obviously I'm not good at this because you have to correct me and tell me what you like and how to touch you. And I just paused and was like, oh, this is how like the circuit, like, there's like circuit continues where like failure just like feeds upon itself, because I paused him and I was like, oh, you think you're supposed to be able to mind read. Of course, right? That's what you've been conditioned to. So now the fact that I'm telling you what I like, you're internalizing that to mean that you're a bad lover.
Right.
And
he was in defense mode. Like,
right.
Yeah.
And instead I'm like, I feel like I'm giving you like, what I'm doing is I was like, I'm so proud of the fact that I'm able to tell you what it is that I like. And my invitation to him was to recognize that that's like a win-win situation. If you, the sign of a good lover to me in this moment is not that you're mind reading what it is my body likes, but if I tell you what my body likes and then you listen and do that thing, that's the sign of a good lover.
That's it. That is the win. It's just like this is such a simple conversation and it is so hard.
Yes. So vulnerable.
Okay. Right. And he was apologizing because he didn't know. He felt like, oh, I should have known. Just like kind of recapping. Like, and I remember
like, and that I should have known, and apologizing for just like putting himself down. Like, oh, I'm obviously not good at this.
Right.
I'm a bad lover. I'm not skilled.
Yeah. And I think we do this whenever we're doing something new, right? We don't know it yet. And we're not supposed to know it yet. We're like, oh, sorry, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, but we haven't learned it yet. It's our first time.
Right.
And it's his first time with you.
But it's not only that. I invite people, and the things that I have learned about pleasure and intimacy is bring your curiosity. If we can bring our curiosity to every time we're with someone, no matter how long we've been together with them, that is what allows the desire and like the fire to keep going.
I see what you're saying. Of course, because things change.
Yes. And so if you just say on this first date, oh, you responded because I kissed you here and you really like that. And then I did that
for the next 50 years.
I was like,
right.
Yeah, right. That's not what being a good lover is.
Right.
And that comes back to what I believe is that our pleasure changes in every moment. And so to get to be curious, if you and I were having a scene together, then like bringing my curiosity and I'm paying attention.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So yeah. And I think you like you had said this was like just a huge aha and a teaching moment really for you, because you're just like, oh, like because you hadn't gotten that response before. Right?
Yeah, right. Like recognizing that we're both in conditioning, right? Like I am thinking he's going to know what to do. This is in my past, right? And now I'm like, oh no, now I know what to do. Yippee. But that didn't mean that he'd gone through the journey to figure out that he didn't have to know what to do, that he was going to be listening and responding.
Well, and then what came up for me is that, so there's an insecurity there, right, that arises. Like, oh, shit, I don't know what to do, and I'm supposed to know what to do. But there's also kind of a take charge attitude that maybe, I don't know, just gets into the feminine masculine territory where it's like, oh, now you're calling the shots in the power dynamic. Hey, I want you to do this. And I don't know what was happening before, but it's a switch, right? And so I think some people in their power dynamic with a longtime boyfriend or partner or lover, they have a certain power dynamic where the one person tends to lead, right, or initiate. And so I've been in a situation where I'm like, oh, I'm disrupting the flow by saying, oh no, I don't like this, do this, because we've been doing the same way for a long time, right? And so I think that's also where that's what can get interrupted. There's nothing wrong with it, of course, but we're so accustomed to having it a particular way in bed with a partner that's a change. That's definitely something I've gone through.
Yes. And so what I'm hearing in that is like it's what it sounds like to me is that there's a point where there was a stagnation and an assumption that, oh, this is what I liked, which means that I will have to like that. And I'm supposed to like that for the rest of my life.
Yeah, pretty much. And so you don't think that then, but that ends up being how it is.
Right. And so then there's someone realizes, oh, I don't really like this thing anymore. And then it becomes awkward because they don't know really how to communicate that, oh, I've changed.
Yeah.
My desires have changed. Exactly. And I'm bringing in that actually our desires change in every moment. It's not just over years.
Yeah.
And
true.
So one of the things I just want to call out because I feel like a sign of it being a good lover, right? As I just said, to the brave hearts is listening and responding. But the step first of that was me listening and responding to myself, right? What is it that I liked? Oh, I like this. I responded by articulating. And then I'm asking my lover to listen and to respond. But that's not it. And you've already mentioned this with your last comment.
Oh, yeah.
Is that being a better lover is about attention and attunement, right? I've been talking about listening and responding with words, but there are other ways of paying attention, right? Does someone's breath change as I touch them here? Does their skin start to quiver? Are there little vibrations, right? If we're pouring our attention and curiosity into someone to say, feeling into what their response is, not through their words, but through what their body is telling you about about your touch, then, and this is what I would think you were saying too about yes, you can be an incredible lover without having to be told what to do because you're responding and attuning to their energy. Which brings us back full circle to the start of the conversation about the kissing with this guy.
Right.
Which is that when you asked, but what about aggressive kissing? Can't that be great? And I'm like, yes, what I feel like now, if I was going to teach someone how to be a better lover and how to be a better kisser in particular, is that you're dancing with the energies so that you're there's a give and there's a take.
Yeah.
But that if you're putting a really forceful energy and not being met with that energy back, right? Then that is oh, we're out of attunement.
Totally.
And different, and then you brought in the idea of oh, what about here's a power. You brought in power, but the idea of maybe someone dominant and someone submissive, I'm surrendering, right? But there is an attunement to, oh, is someone surrendering to my touch and becoming more and more relaxed?
Yeah.
Versus, and so it doesn't the level of intensity can go up and the level of relaxation can go up. Those two things can be true. But I would say in the case with this particular person and this kissing, right? I wasn't getting more relaxed the more he was kissing me. Right. I was in this awkward, not sure. And so if he was attuning, if that had been attunement, it would have been
she doesn't like this.
She's not, or let me soften the tongue so my tongue is matching the rate at which is coming out. So
yeah, I mean, I'm with you. Just really just playing devil's advocate there.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean, you try something and you see, oh, how did that work? What's and then you respond accordingly.
Yeah.
Listen and respond.
Right. Yeah. So to recap, what I would say, my journey to being a better lover was one, to figure out what actually brings me pleasure. To listen and respond to what it is my body likes. And then once I was able to do that, it made it much easier for me to listen and to respond to what my lover was asking of me. And then attention and attunement, pouring my attention and attention into this other person, and then my attuning my energies to their energies are all the things that have impacted my ability to be a better lover. Anyone curious?
Okay, so what the other question I have is, you are a giver and you are very attuned to a room full of people, attuned to who's needing water, who might be uncomfortable, and there are certain personalities that naturally have these qualities. Yeah, I can think of different people in my life who are really good at it, and then others, it's just like not their thing. So if it's really not someone's thing, how do you learn this?
Well, I think it's you just started with attuning to someone else. I know a lot of people who are good at attuning to someone else. So let me say this again, Bravehearts. This is not where you start. You have to learn to attune to yourself. And so that's the starting point.
Great, but I can be super attuned to myself. I'm not nearly as attuned to everyone in the room as you are, because we have different personalities. So I might be, and I'm just saying, like, I might be super attuned into like, I'm feeling this, but just not naturally as attuned to everyone in the room. And so I'm just wondering if there's anything I can.
What I would love to do, because I'm not talking about everyone in the room. I'm talking about, we've got one person in front of you.
I know.
And so
yeah.
I'm asking to bring it to that question. And so your attention is going to, okay, if you've started to listen and respond to what it is that you need, can you bring your attention to this one other person? It's like focused here of start noticing and bringing curiosity to listening and responding to their words, and then also to noticing like the these smaller details of breath. I think some of us there's a natural level of skill, maybe, which is what you're speaking to, of attunement, but I'm saying this is a skill that can be learned.
Yeah.
That however you have been, right? Because here, just my whole story is I used to be a different way, and I'm different now.
Yeah. Okay. And I think what I'm wanting to remember and pass on to the Bravehearts is that, you can start this anytime, right? Like any time of your life, anytime in the relationship, anytime in the beginning or halfway through or it's never really too late to begin doing this.
Right. I mean, this brings up another client that I had actually put a post about this, which is that a client realized, he's in his mid-60s, that in a sexual experience, he had never asked for what he wanted. He was always trying to please the other person. And in doing so, he was like, oh, what is it that I want? And I was like, well, the place to start is with an exploration. What are the different sensations? BDSM is great for that. Take out a whole bunch of different sensation toys,
right? And
start to, what do feathers do? What does, like claws do? Like, what are sensations? What are areas of the body? And bringing the curiosity to yourself, to say, oh, what is it that I like? Instead of back to our conditioning that all of us have of, oh, I'm supposed to like this or not supposed to like this. This kind of comes back to our podcast that we just recorded about small ways to give ourselves permission is I'm just gonna allow myself to try something new in this area of self-exploration or being with my partner and lover let's just try all things new today. And just without the expectation that we know what we're going to like or not like.
Yeah. I think that is, and strangely, that's the ultimate challenge, is that change is hard. And initiating that change can be especially hard. I mean, I've done it and gone through it and happy to be on the other side of it. But it definitely was, so uncomfortable. I think I guess I'm just not going to mention it. Or I'm not going to mention it tonight.
Right.
Right. Because,
Yeah. I mean, clearly the stuff that I've shared about me and my journey was like, none of that was easy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a challenge. And this.
And easy on his part too, right? For him to say that to me.
Right.
Right. like that my husband, like that wasn't an easy thing for him to say.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So this, I'm just going to end it kind of by coming back to this, this quote that all of you know, because my family and I say a prayer, every night at dinner, and we say, thank you for our family, thank you for our food, thank you for this moment, Namaste. And Namaste, as many of you may know, means the light in me honors the light in you. It can be interpreted different ways, of course. And it's so funny because I think of that, and I think they think of it in a yoga class as, oh, I see you, right? Which is beautiful. I see you. Except it starts with the light in me. Mm-hmm. And that's really what this episode is about. Is like, no, what's your pleasure?
Right.
How do you feel in the moment? What do you like? What do you not like? And this is what you were reflecting to me, is like, when you figure out who you are and where your divine is and what your light is, only then can you truly see the light or the divine in others. Yeah,
that's beautiful. Way to describe it, because it's ultimately like this episode is about giving yourself permission to be curious about all of the ways you may never have explored for yourself.
Yeah.
Sensation, touch, communication. I mean, and that none of us know. We just this is also interesting. I mean, I thought about this, but that we say we've been cultured to assume that someone else is going to know what it is that can mind read for us. Well, in a way, we're also conditioned to think that we can mind read, that without exploration, we should just know what we want. But it's taken years of exploration. Oh, there's a whole thing of BDSM tools. I can tell you the 5 that are my go-tos. And I've tried a whole bunch of others, right? But I have to try the others to know, oh, these are the ones that I prefer most of the time.
Yeah, back to cultural conditioning. We're told what to want, maybe. Right,
I'm supposed to have sex in a bed versus someone else figured out finally, oh my God, a kitchen table's amazing. Right? But you have to figure that out.
Which comes back to the mission behind permission to be human, is that we're never proselytizing for any particular type of thing, just to know that you have a choice.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And that when you listen to our inner witch, to our inner knowing, to the light, to our heart, then where it takes us is often not where we were told to go.
Yeah. Whew, no shit. Follow your instincts, brave hearts. We're out of here.
Enjoy.
Do you need permission to be human? You got it. Listen, subscribe, and review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Learn more about us at permissiontobehuman.live.